Marisa Tomei is now 60 years old, but when she was filming My Cousin Vinny, she was carrying a massive secret, something so deeply personal, so completely unexpected, that no one on set had any idea what she was enduring. To the world, she looked like she was simply stealing scenes and capturing hearts, eventually earning an Oscar for her efforts. But what if we told you that her legendary performance almost didn't happen at all? What was Marisa Tomei hiding during the production of this comedy classic, and why? From behind-the-scenes casting struggles to personal battles with fear, this is the untold story of one of the most iconic performances in film history. Stay tuned, because the truth is far more shocking than you might expect. The Oscar win that stunned everyone came when Marisa Tomei's name was announced at the 1993 Academy Awards. The entire audience was left in disbelief. It wasn't because she didn't deserve the honor. It was because no one predicted it. At the time, Tomei was a relatively unknown actress, yet she had gone head-to-head with established stars and triumphed. Her portrayal of Mona Lisa Vito in My Cousin Vinny wasn't merely funny, it was electrifying. Yet behind the laughter and effortless performance, Tomei was hiding a powerful secret. And no, it wasn't a scandal, it was fear. She hadn't even been expected to win. In fact, she had barely even been cast. Studio executives had serious doubts about her, and much of Hollywood shared those concerns. What no one could see was how deeply those doubts weighed on Marisa. Throughout filming, she concealed her intense anxiety, forging ahead with determination and composure. She didn't let the fear show. She channeled it. What audiences saw on screen was nothing short of magic. Some critics even speculated wildly that Jack Palance had read the wrong name at the Oscars, suggesting her win was a mistake. But the reality was far simpler. She had earned it. Every single moment, every line, every expressive glance, "My biological clock is ticking like this," wasn't just a punchline. It became a cultural milestone. Her Oscar win wasn't just a personal victory. It was a triumph for every underestimated artist still fighting for a chance. But to truly grasp how Tomei managed to deliver the performance of a lifetime, you need to go back to the moment she nearly lost it all. The role of Mona Lisa Vito almost went to someone else entirely. Marisa Tomei was far from the studio's first choice. In fact, her name wasn't even on their original list. Producers were lobbying hard for bigger, more recognizable actresses, stars like Lorraine Bracco, who brought proven box office success and a devoted fan following. Compared to them, Tomei, mostly known for her work in soap operas and small film roles, felt like a risky bet the studio wasn't eager to make. But director Jonathan Lynn saw something nobody else did. After collaborating with Tomei on Oscar, a 1991 comedy headlined by Sylvester Stallone, Lynn couldn't get her out of his mind. He recognized that Mona Lisa Vito needed much more than just a tough New York accent. She needed warmth, sharp wit, and undeniable strength. All qualities Tomei had in abundance. He fought fiercely for her, pushing the studio until they reluctantly agreed. But even after securing the part, the pressure on Tomei didn't let up. She walked onto set fully aware she wasn't the studio's favorite. She was the long shot. And that only fueled her determination. Rather than trying to dazzle everyone with flashy tricks, Marisa chose to fully disappear into the role. She didn't act like Mona Lisa Vito. She became her. She infused the character with heart, intelligence, and vulnerability, elevating what could have been a cartoonish stereotype into something unforgettable. As one crew member put it, when she arrived on set, she wasn't pretending. She simply was Mona Lisa. Just as Tomei was finally hitting her stride, the unimaginable happened. The studio seriously considered cutting her out of the film altogether. The studio's plot to cut Mona Lisa Vito. It seems almost impossible to believe now, but there was a time when the studio seriously considered erasing Mona Lisa Vito from the storyline altogether. Their idea? Reduce her role to a shallow, one-dimensional character. The stereotypical whiny girlfriend just along for the ride. They genuinely believed she wasn't important. They thought she added nothing of real value. Screenwriter Dale Launer saw the warning signs early. He recognized what the executives were asking for, conflict for conflict's sake. A nagging woman constantly complaining that her boyfriend wasn't giving her enough attention. But that wasn't the vision Launer had for Mona Lisa, and it certainly wasn't the story he wanted to tell. So he crafted the famous biological clock scene, a brilliant narrative maneuver that appeared to satisfy the studio's demand for tension. while secretly granting Mona Lisa depth, strength, and true significance. It was clever, it was uproarious, and most importantly, it felt authentic. When Marisa Tomei delivered that speech, something magical happened. Suddenly, Mona Lisa Vito wasn't just comic relief anymore. She became the heart of the movie. She was intelligent, formidable, and utterly unforgettable. That one scene didn't just rescue her character, it may very well have saved the entire film. In a single monologue, she evolved from a side character to a standout star. Launer would later reflect on how pivotal that moment was. Even though audiences were laughing and critics were showering her with praise, Marisa was still concealing a huge personal struggle, not from the camera, but from everyone around her. What Marisa Tomei was hiding on set. You'd never guess it by watching her sparkling performance, but Marisa Tomei was battling overwhelming anxiety throughout the production of My Cousin Vinny. On the surface, she appeared poised and confident, yet internally she was plagued with self-doubt. She constantly questioned herself. Could she truly carry this role? Could she share the screen with Joe Pesci without fading into the background? Would the studio find some excuse to replace her? She buried these fears deep inside, presenting only a cheerful, composed face to those around her. Every smile she flashed, every line she delivered, it was all carefully masked. But behind the scenes, once the cameras stopped rolling, the worry gnawed at her. The pressure wasn't just professional, it felt deeply personal. She overheard the whispered criticisms, the cruel speculation. Some people believed her casting was a mistake. Others assumed she was merely a temporary fill-in until a bigger name could be secured. That kind of quiet cruelty doesn't just disappear, it festers. But Marisa found a way to use it. She turned every ounce of doubt into pure energy, channeling it into her performance. Every frame burned with the fire of someone desperate to prove herself. Later, when critics tried to delegitimize her Oscar win, suggesting it was undeserved, she didn't argue. She let her work speak volumes. Because the real secret Marisa Tomei was hiding wasn't scandal or controversy. It was a fear every true artist knows. The fear that deep down, you might not be enough. But one key relationship on set made all the difference. Someone who believed in her from the beginning. Joe Pesci and Marisa Tomei's unlikely bond. On paper, Joe Pesci and Marisa Tomei seemed like a mismatched pair. He was a seasoned veteran, fresh off iconic roles in Goodfellas and Lethal Weapon 2. She was the bright-eyed newcomer, still earning her place in Hollywood. But once filming began, something remarkable happened. Their chemistry was immediate and completely authentic. Watching them, you'd swear they had been working together for years. Known for his fierce intensity, Pesci took Tomei under his wing. He brought his guitar to set, and between takes, they would sing together, laugh, and bond. He encouraged her, grounded her, and most importantly, he made her feel truly seen. Pesci instinctively understood how important it was to protect the rare magic they shared on screen. To help their characters believably pass as a couple, the makeup department had to work some subtle tricks on Pesci, including a mini facelift with tabs, hooks, and a carefully fitted hairpiece. The physical transformation was understated but effective. Yet what truly sold their relationship wasn't the makeup or the wardrobe. It was the undeniable, effortless connection between Joe Pesci and Marisa Tomei, the relationship that made the film unforgettable. It wasn't just the lines or the scenes. It was the way they looked at each other, teased one another, clashed, and made up again. Joe Pesci was everything Marisa Tomei needed in a scene partner. She once said he instinctively knew exactly when to push her and when to give her space. Their bond didn't just hold My Cousin Vinny together, it made the movie soar. Without Pesci, there's no Vinny. But without Tomei, there's no heart, no soul. And astonishingly, that heart almost never made it onto the screen. The real reason the studio didn't trust her before My Cousin Vinny, Marisa Tomei, wasn't a name everyone knew. She was a hardworking actress, mostly recognized for soap operas and smaller supporting parts. So when her name came up for the role of Mona Lisa Vito, the studio executives panicked. To them, she seemed too low profile, too gentle, too unmistakably Brooklyn. In their minds, she didn't have the commanding presence to stand out in a high-energy courtroom comedy, especially not alongside someone like Joe Pesci. They worried her accent wouldn't come off as endearing but irritating, that she'd be swallowed up by the film's chaos, that she simply wouldn't shine. But director Jonathan Lynn saw something entirely different. He recognized a raw potential in her, someone who could mix toughness with humor in perfect balance. He saw an authenticity that no big-name star could replicate. Still, the backstage tension was very real. Marisa was fully aware she was viewed as a risky choice, and yet day after day, she showed up to set without a hint of diva behavior. No unnecessary retakes, no complaints unless they were truly needed. Just relentless focus and quiet resolve. She had something rare, one crew member recalled. She listened. She reacted. She was completely alive on camera. That spark, the very thing the studio nearly overlooked, became the very essence of Mona Lisa Vito. And when the cameras rolled, every doubt vanished. What remained was undeniable. Yet the moment that truly sealed her place in Hollywood history, the one that etched her performance into legend, wasn't even part of the original script. The iconic line that was never meant to happen. Picture it. Mona Lisa Vito, standing tall in the courtroom, arms folded, voice dripping with sarcasm, eyes razor sharp. Vinny's in trouble, and she knows it. She flashes him that look, the universal look every couple knows all too well, and casually drops the line that would echo through pop culture history. "Oh yeah, you blend." It's the kind of line people still quote to this day, the kind of moment that elevates a performance from memorable to legendary. But here's the shocker. That iconic line wasn't even in the script. Marisa Tomei improvised it entirely. In that moment, she wasn't just playing Mona Lisa. She was her, witty, biting, deeply real. The courtroom may have been packed with lawyers, judges, and serious dialogue, but in that instant, Tomei's mind was the sharpest in the room. When she delivered that off-the-cuff line, it wasn't just the crew who burst out laughing. Even Joe Pesci momentarily broke character. Director Jonathan Lynn immediately recognized it for what it was: cinematic gold. It was one of many little touches where Tomei infused the character with authenticity, rhythm, and unexpected complexity. She wasn't just another actress reciting lines. She brought lived-in charm and spontaneity to every scene. She didn't just support the story, she stole it. Yet her most iconic contribution, the one that defined Mona Lisa Vito and earned her an Oscar, came purely from a flash of instinct. But before Mona Lisa could take center stage and steal the courtroom spotlight, someone else had to dream up the story that would change everything. And the inspiration behind it all came from one of the most unexpected places. The concept for My Cousin Vinny didn't originate in a courtroom setting. It was sparked during a casual chat. Screenwriter Dale Launer was having a conversation with a friend in the late 1970s when he encountered a young man anxiously awaiting the results of his bar exam. Launer casually asked, "What happens if you don't pass?" The man simply shrugged and replied, "You just take it again." That simple exchange ignited a question in Launer's mind. What if someone failed not just once but 13 times? The idea refused to leave him. He wondered, what kind of attorney would that person become? What if, by some wild turn of events, that lawyer had to defend someone dear to him in a murder trial? What if he wasn't polished, confident, or even respected, but somehow managed to win? And just like that, the character of Vinny Gambini took shape. A scrappy, rough-around-the-edges guy who might not know the legal textbook inside and out, but understood human nature better than most seasoned lawyers. Then, a second flash of brilliance hit. The creation of Mona Lisa Vito. Launer envisioned someone who could slice through Vinny's chaos with raw, undeniable truth. A woman who worked in her father's garage, knew cars better than most men, had a New Yorker's biting wit, and carried a heart bigger than any courtroom. This wasn't about crafting a typical love interest. It was about striking the perfect balance, chaos and clarity side by side. Together, Vinny and Mona Lisa weren't merely a romantic pair, they were a formidable team. And from one random conversation about a bar exam emerged one of cinema's most unexpected and enduring duos. Speaking of unforgettable moments, one of the film's most iconic scenes, the biological clock monologue, almost didn't make it into the movie. You know the one. Marisa Tomei standing in the courtroom, dressed in that polka dot outfit, passionately explaining how her biological clock is ticking like this. Her voice rises, her hands gesticulate wildly, and even the judge can't help but lean in. It's hilarious, unforgettable, and absolutely vital. but it very nearly never existed. Initially, the studio demanded conflict between Mona Lisa and Vinny. They pressured writer Dale Launer to inject a moment where Mona Lisa would nag about Vinny not paying her enough attention. The usual tired, one-dimensional trope audiences had seen too many times before. But Launer had a different vision. He decided to give the studio what they thought they wanted, while secretly delivering something far richer. The biological clock scene is, on the surface, a complaint, but it's also brilliantly layered, sharp, and uproariously funny. It portrays Mona Lisa not as a whining girlfriend, but as a woman with her own ambitions, her own urgent timeline, and no fear of making it crystal clear. Marisa Tomei delivered the monologue with ferocious precision. Her timing was impeccable. Her exasperation felt authentic, and her delivery rhythm was pure perfection. That single scene redefined her character in the eyes of the audience. Mona Lisa Vito was no longer just comic relief. She had depth, ambition, and a life of her own ticking away. Without that moment, the film would have lacked its emotional heartbeat, and Tomei might never have captured the Oscar. But while she was commanding the courtroom on camera, something far more intense was unfolding behind the scenes. Something rooted not in fiction, but in very real danger. Most courtroom comedies are shot on sound stages, safe, quiet, and carefully controlled environments. But My Cousin Vinny broke away from tradition. They didn't film those jail scenes on a Hollywood set. Instead, they used a real prison, filled with real inmates. The tension wasn't acting. It was palpable. Every glance, every moment carried an underlying current of genuine unease. The actors, crew, and everyone involved had to navigate a setting where mistakes could carry very real consequences. It added a rawness, an authenticity that bled into the film's tone. The fear wasn't part of the script, but you can feel it on screen. And that decision, risky as it was, gave My Cousin Vinny a realism that no set could ever fake. Director Jonathan Lynn was determined to capture true authenticity, and he succeeded. Several scenes were shot inside the actual Lee Arrendale State Prison in Georgia. That's right, a maximum security facility, home to real inmates, some of whom were serving life sentences. Death row wasn't far away either. The tension in those prison scenes? Absolutely genuine. The fear on Stan and Bill's faces as they navigate the prison corridors wasn't acting. They were genuinely unnerved, surrounded by individuals who had nothing left to lose. Even Marisa Tomei admitted that the atmosphere was both unsettling and electric. On screen, the guards you see were actual correctional officers, and while some prisoners were hired as extras, many were real inmates. The catcalls, the glares, none of it was scripted. It gave the film an unexpected rawness, a tough edge that grounded its comedy in real-world grit. Jonathan Lynn later reflected on the experience, saying he could literally feel the heavy, cold air pressing down on him during filming. "You can't manufacture that kind of energy," he stated, and we didn't. For the cast, especially the younger actors, the experience was transformative. This wasn't just a movie set. It was a first-hand glimpse into a harsh reality most had never encountered. As the fictional story unfolded on screen, the real-world stakes behind the scenes made every moment more charged and authentic. When audiences watch My Cousin Vinny, every detail of Beecham County, Alabama feels incredibly authentic. From the dusty back roads to the southern drawls and the charmingly slow pace of the courthouse. It's easy to assume the town was lifted straight from a real Alabama map. But here's the kicker. Beecham County doesn't actually exist. It never did. The town was a masterful Hollywood creation. Nearly every scene was filmed in Georgia, not Alabama. The stately courthouse where much of the action takes place? That's the Jasper County Superior Court in Monticello, Georgia. Even the infamous Sacco Suds convenience store where the crime occurs is real. You can still visit it today, standing like a frozen snapshot of film history along a rural Georgia road. The production team left nothing to chance. They meticulously scouted Monticello and nearby towns to find locations that captured an authentic Southern feel. Winding streets, weathered brick courthouses, and diners that seemed to serve sweet tea by the gallon. Even the jail scenes, brimming with raw tension, were filmed inside the operational Lee Arrendale Correctional Institution, further adding to the movie's authenticity. The true magic lies in how seamlessly the setting blends into the story. Audiences from the South swear it feels like Alabama. Those from the North instantly buy into the culture clash because it feels so real. My Cousin Vinny doesn't just show the South, it embodies it. And that realism is crucial because the entire premise hinges on a single brilliant idea: a fast-talking Brooklyn lawyer completely out of his element. The deeper the culture clash, the bigger the laughs. It's not just Vinny fumbling through unfamiliar legal procedures. It's him trying to order breakfast and getting utterly baffled by grits. Marisa Tomei's portrayal of Mona Lisa Vito amplifies this contrast perfectly. Her unapologetic New York swagger, her bold style, big hair, leopard print, made her a human firecracker in the sleepy southern setting. Every time Mona Lisa entered a scene, she shook the place up. Not because she tried to fit in, but precisely because she didn't. And she never cared to. That rebellious spirit is part of what made her so unforgettable. And although the southern town was a fictional creation, the legal accuracy in the movie was anything but fake. What follows might surprise you. My Cousin Vinny didn't simply mine the courtroom for laughs. It actually nailed a lot of legal details with impressive precision. Astonishingly, yes. You might not expect attorneys to sing the praises of a courtroom comedy, but My Cousin Vinny is regularly cited as one of the most legally accurate films ever made. And yes, that includes Mona Lisa Vito's impromptu expert testimony about tire tracks and pause attraction. Law schools across the United States have used the film to demonstrate that even in unorthodox situations, proper legal procedure can be rigorously maintained. Vinny's cross-examinations are clever, sharp, and adhere closely to actual courtroom standards. His objections are mostly spot on. The way evidence is introduced? Surprisingly faithful to real-life trial procedure. Even more impressive, Marisa Tomei's performance on the witness stand was not just funny, it was meticulously detailed. She didn't merely rattle off witty lines. She provided specific, credible information. Her character's deep knowledge of cars was so authentic that she came across as a legitimate expert, especially when she stunned the courtroom with her confidence and precision. But here's the catch. There was a tiny factual hiccup. According to dedicated car enthusiasts, there was actually a third car model from the 1960s that featured pause attraction and independent rear suspension, the 1964 Studebaker Avanti. Screenwriter Dale Launer only learned this after the film's release, when a car-savvy high school friend pointed it out to him. Launer simply laughed it off, saying, "It didn't change the story." And it truly didn't. That courtroom moment, minor flaw and all, still solidified Mona Lisa Vito's place in cinematic history. The scene resonated because it was crafted with genuine respect for the law, albeit sprinkled with a comedic edge. Speaking of unexpected comedic brilliance, the next legendary moment wasn't planned at all. It stemmed from a real misunderstanding on set. Many of cinema's most iconic lines are meticulously written, revised, and polished. But others? They happen entirely by accident. In My Cousin Vinny, one of the funniest and most unforgettable moments was pure serendipity. Picture the scene. Vinny Gambini, fresh off another courtroom mishap, tries to impress the judge with some legal jargon. He refers to his clients as two Utes. The courtroom falls silent. The judge, puzzled and deadpan, asks, "What's a Ute?" The timing, the pause, it was pure comedy gold. Yet that wasn't in the original script. During early rehearsals, British director Jonathan Lynn kept hearing Joe Pesci say, "Utes." At first, Lynn assumed it was a mistake. He asked Pesci to repeat the line, and again he heard Utes. Lynn, confused, asked, "I'm sorry, what's a Ute?" The entire crew burst into laughter. Having never encountered the New Jersey accented version of the word youths before, Lynn genuinely thought it sounded like a foreign word. That innocent question, "What's a Ute?" sparked a spontaneous moment that would go on to become one of the film's most memorable highlights. It was a perfect collision of character and situation. Pesci's fast-talking, streetwise persona clashing with the slow, formal, southern courtroom environment. It perfectly encapsulated what My Cousin Vinny is really about. Someone totally out of his element trying to navigate a world that feels completely upside down. The beauty of that moment lies in its simplicity. A one-word misunderstanding that speaks volumes. Pesci's quick-witted save, the judge's baffled expression, and the lingering silence that stretches just long enough to turn the scene hysterical. Every element of it is pure gold. Even though Marisa Tomei's Mona Lisa Vito doesn't appear in that moment, the tone it establishes carries throughout every scene she's part of. The cultural clash, the surprising cleverness, and the humor born out of genuine miscommunication all build toward her ultimate courtroom triumph. When Mona Lisa turns the case upside down with her deep car knowledge, it feels completely earned. It serves as proof that not every iconic movie moment is crafted at a writer's desk. Sometimes magic happens from simply listening, laughing, and trusting the moment. And while that spontaneous brilliance made it into the final cut, the next moment we're about to dive into didn't survive. And its absence may have forever changed how audiences perceive Vinny. Originally, Vinny Gambini wasn't just portrayed as a scrappy, street-smart rookie attorney. He was written with a learning disability, specifically dyslexia. This detail was meant to explain why he had failed the bar exam multiple times, 6 to be exact. The intention was clear. Vinny wasn't unintelligent. He was simply different. His brilliance emerged through unorthodox thinking, while his struggles with reading and writing concealed a sharp, strategic mind. Screenwriter Dale Launer wanted to shatter stereotypes, showcasing that intelligence doesn't always fit a conventional mold. However, Joe Pesci had reservations. He felt uneasy about playing dyslexia for laughs or letting it become a comedic crutch. In the end, the scene revealing Vinny's learning difference was cut. Looking back, it may have been the best decision. Without that explicit explanation, Vinny became more enigmatic. How did he make it this far? Why did he struggle with the exams? Viewers were left to speculate. Maybe he was a party animal in school. Maybe he crammed at the last minute instead of studying properly. Or perhaps he simply wasn't a good test taker. So when Vinny eventually starts winning in court, it feels even more satisfying. It's the classic underdog story, someone everyone, including the audience, underestimates, only to watch him rise against the odds. This subtle choice added layers to Pesci's performance, sharpening Vinny's edge and making his ultimate victory that much sweeter. While Vinny's backstory underwent changes, Marisa Tomei's big moment arrived exactly the way fate intended, and the way she learned about it could only happen in Hollywood. Typically, stars find out about an Oscar nomination through a call from their publicist or by nervously watching the announcements live. But Marisa Tomei? She discovered her life-changing news half asleep on a friend's couch. It was 1993. Tomei had spent the night at a close friend's house, a friend who was 9 months pregnant. Early that morning, loud screaming jolted Tomei awake. She immediately panicked, assuming her friend had gone into labor. She scrambled for towels, shouted for a taxi, fully ready to deliver a baby. But the screams weren't from contractions. They were screams of joy. Tomei had just been nominated for Best Supporting Actress for My Cousin Vinny. "I thought I was about to deliver a baby," she later joked. "Instead, I was about to deliver a speech." Winning the Oscar turned out to be an even bigger shock. Rumors swirled. Some whispered it was a mistake, that the presenter had called the wrong name, that a newcomer like Tomei didn't deserve it. Yet none of that mattered. On stage, she beamed. Backstage, she cried. What she had kept hidden throughout filming, during interviews, and even while sitting in the Oscar audience was a simple, raw fear that she wasn't good enough. But that night proved otherwise. And as the crowd rose to its feet and the name Mona Lisa Vito echoed through cinematic history, Marisa Tomei became something Hollywood hadn't seen coming. A true, undeniable star.